If you're trying to decide what decks you want to start playing on day one of Murder at Castle Nathria, I've got a couple of suggestions for you. These are going to be the decks that I'm going to be playing on day one, and I've got one deck for each class. Before we get into these lists though, I just want to say again, my recommendation is that if you do not open the cards that are needed to make these decks, don't craft anything until a week or two into the expansion. Very quickly, we're going to learn that decks that people think are good, or decks that are good the first day or the first week, are actually not going to be good enough in the long run. You don't want to craft bad cards and then put yourself potentially behind in your collection. Right off the bat, we're going to take a look at Shaman. So you can see here, this is a VS Evolve Shaman. VS is Vicious Syndicate. You can check those guys out, vicioussyndicate.com. I'm a big fan of that website and the things that they do. And this is just pretty much what you would expect from an Evolve Shaman list. You know, you're running all of the Evolve tools. I'm not necessarily sure that Baroness Vage makes the cut in Evolve Shaman in the final list, but it's going to be in their list to begin with. You know, running things like Crud Caretaker that's going to put 2 bodies on the board that can be evolved. Of course, you're running Goldshire Knolls, play it with Rush, remove a minion, then evolve it into another 10-drop. And, you know, tiny toys, just all the things that you would typically expect to see in an Evolved Shaman. Evolved Shaman probably looking to be back, and whether or not that's good is going to be a matter of personal opinion. I really hope Evolved Shaman is not all that great this time around. And as you can see, the decks with UC, that's Uncorrupt. These are actually decks that I have theory crafted myself. I've got a version of Denathrius Druid here, so pretty much this just plays a lot of nature spells. Also using the new legendary Topior, the Shrubagazer, and then just trying to build up a Denathrius to get that big final hit to finish off your opponent. So, you know, we're playing Jerry Rig Carpenter's Capture Coldtooth Mines. We want to be able to get Denathrius in hand as early as possible, and then just proceed from there to be able to buff the Denathrius. You know, Flipper Friends, we're likely playing 6 1/1s in Rush. We've got Scale of Onyxia, which is going to be 7 minions with Rush. Then, of course, also the minions we're killing on the other side of the board, pumping up the big Denathrius. And of course, with Shrubagazer, after you get this down on the board through the rest of the game, every nature spell is going to summon a 3/3 with Rush. Again, just a lot of defensive tools with Denathrius as a finisher. There's probably going to be some games where you can actually win on tempo just by going wide on the board. Your opponent doesn't have an answer. You can get a lot of damage in like that. I'm playing Wild Blue Seedsman in this. The ramp is good. It's basically like a miniature version of Guff himself. So should be a pretty solid deck, I think. Moving on to the Uncorrupt Draka Rogue. You may have seen my other video about this. This is that same theory crafted list. Pretty similar to Boat Rogue now, but seems to be an upgraded version. Little extra card draw in the form of Door of Shadows, little extra mana cheat in the form of Serrated Bone Spike, and then just really trying to pump out maybe a medium-sized weapon to a large-sized Necrolord weapon. And then, of course, we have the Sinstone Graveyard as well. So this list unchanged from the video that you may or may not have watched. If you're interested in that, you can check that out on my channel. Vicious Syndicate Quest Paladin. So Quest Paladin was the first thing I thought of for Paladin, and I actually worked out my own list, and then when I took a look at the Vicious Syndicate list, I realized that their list was significantly better than mine. So I decided not to embarrass myself and to use a list that looks a little bit tighter. So of course, Quest Paladin looking to play a lot of 1-drops, and then, you know, just take advantage of the Dude package, as people are calling it. You can see Buffet Biggin, Stewart the Steward, Sinful Sous Chef, so on and so forth. And Famished Fool for some card draw here. Of course, Murlocula. It's going to cost 0 at some point. 0 cost cards typically end up being pretty strong. So Quest Paladin maybe finally has a shot at being a real deck. We won't know again until we can actually get in and test it. Uncorrupt Aggro Druid. So pretty much it's what you would expect from a Fel Aggro Druid list. It's just included some of the newer cards here. Dispose of Evidence seems really strong. 3 attack is good. The drawback isn't that bad. Same thing for Bibliomite. The drawback isn't that bad. It's just a big body for only 2 mana. And then we're going to be able to draw cards with Magnifying Glaive. And then, of course, Crixus. Discards your hand, but Death Rattle draw 3 cards. There's going to be times where we play this and you don't even discard, but maybe 1 or 2 cards. It's going to depend on, you know, what you've played and what your hand state is at the time of this guy coming down. I've left Zalag and Jace in the deck. I kind of like that top end. These are just 2 really strong finishing minions. I've seen other lists similar to this that actually cut those and try to go for a lower curve, but I think the correct thing to do is going to be to actually leave these big minions in. But Aggro Demon Hunter looking good. One quick note from me. When it comes to the relics, I think when I reviewed the relics, my thoughts were they're slow, but they're going to snowball hard. And I still agree with that, but the problem is all of the cards that Demon Hunter has access to currently really wants Demon Hunter to just be an aggro deck. And so I don't really see the relic package actually being all that successful until at least the mini set comes out and we actually get more cards. So again, I could be wrong. Relic package though, I think it might actually just be too slow right now for what Demon Hunter has access to. Moving on, we've got the Vicious Syndicate Imp Zoo Warlock. Pretty much what you would expect. I took a look at their list and I thought, you know, no need to really make any changes or no need to theory craft my own list. This is just pretty solid. Exactly what you would expect. We're playing lots of imps. We're playing, of course, the Impending Catastrophe just because it's such strong card draw. And then, you know, again, just the imps that you would expect. Blade Master Okani, certainly a valuable addition into any tempo deck just because the amount of tempo that it can generate by blocking either a minion or a spell. And then, of course, rounding out the top end of the deck with Shady Bartender. Of course, imps are demons, so we can buff those. Sort of in the vein of a finisher along the lines of maybe like a Savage Roar if you played Classic, something like that. And then, of course, Imp King Rafam, again, just another way to be able to give your imps 2/2. So really just these cards, most of the time, going to be just finishers, although Imp King, of course, being able to resurrect imps has a little bit more to it than that. But could be a really solid zoo deck here. This deck is probably going to be good the first day, the first couple of days, just because it looks like it's pretty tightly tuned. It looks like it's pretty powerful, and people are going to be playing weird stuff trying to figure out what's good. So Warlock looking pretty good for the first day / first week. Vicious Syndicate Enrage Warrior. This was pretty much the same thing that I was thinking about when I theory crafted my own list. A lot of similarities between the list that I crafted and this one, but I think Vicious Syndicate actually nailed it just a little bit better than I personally did. I was running you know, maybe some stuff down here in the top end that didn't need to be there. For example, like Whirling Combatant. And Whirling Combatant could actually still be good, but may not be. I think I was, Man the Cannons didn't actually cross my mind. That seems to be a pretty good addition. So, Enraged Warrior looks like it may be okay. I don't know. Warrior looks like it's going to be struggling. I'm not sure if this deck is even going to be good enough, but this is probably the best that we're going to be able to come up with, at least in the early days. And of course, you know, we have the big-time finishers with Grom. Decimator Ulra could potentially be a big-time finisher, depending on, you know, exactly how the game went. So, Vicious Syndicate, Enraged Warrior, probably the best we can do there, at least until we get more information. For Mage, I've got the Uncorrupt Quest Mage. So I've seen a lot of theory-crafted Mage decks, and a lot of them revolve around like the Wildfire package and maybe some other things. I feel like this could potentially be Quest Mage making a comeback. It's certainly different. Again, this deck may not be good. At the very least, it may not be the best Mage deck available to us. But I think it's worth testing. You know, Quest Mage, certainly we have a lot of Frostfire and Arcane spells. The Frost spells, of course, are mostly going to be the new Volatile Skeleton package. And then we round out on the top end 2 Kel'Thuzad and running Lady Nazjar, just because it has a lot of utility. It can give you what you need. It can give you a little bit of a board clear. It can give you a little bit of armor. It can also discount the cards that are in your hand. So certainly going to be an interesting list, and I'm looking forward to playing it. Quest Mage. Here we've got Uncorrupt Wild Seed Hunter. So again, this is a list I think that has not changed since my Theory Craft video on it. So if you're familiar with that video, this list is going to look pretty similar. When I crafted this list, I specifically wanted to leave out Doggy Biscuits and Ramming Mounts. Just to me, those don't fit the theme of a Face Hunter, and this is really more of like a Face Hunter aggro deck style of deck, the way I've crafted it. And so my idea was, you know, really try to go wide. That's why we have the Trogs, and then of course we've got like the Frenzied Fangs and the other things that are going to be going on here. You know, School Teachers, that's 2 minions and a single card, so on and so forth. So this is the route that I decided to try to take Wild Seed Hunter. Could be that something like the Ramming Mount Doggy Biscuit version might actually be better, but again, I feel like things need to be tested, and this is where I landed on my initial theory crafting of that deck. Wild Seed Hunter, I think, probably going to be one of the better decks in the early days. Shadow Priest, potentially making a comeback. This is the Vicious Syndicate list. The list is going to look pretty similar to the last time aggro Shadow Priest was being played, but you can see there are a few new cards here. Dredger Staff. This is one of the cards that I picked to actually be a sleeper card. I think this card is going to find its way into a good deck at some point during the Murder at Castle Nathria expansion. Crooked Cook included in this list. I feel like this is actually bad card draw. But Shadow Priest just kind of needs card draw, so maybe it's worth playing. The guys at Vicious Syndicate certainly seem to think so. Location should be really, really strong. I think Priest actually got maybe the best, or certainly one of the best locations out of all the classes. And then Partner in Crime should just be an absolutely disgusting card. If you can get the Partner in Crime down and buff it with the Cathedral of Atonement, it's just a lot of stats on the board. You get 2 4/6s, and that can really aid you in your plan to be able to go into your opponent's face. So aggro Shadow Priest possibly making a comeback. And that is actually the end of the list. Boat Rogue is what I'm playing as I finish out the current expansion. So that is one deck for each class for the first day / first couple of days / first week of Murder at Castle Nathria. Again, I'm putting out there a no crafting warning. You may want to wait a week or two before you start crafting some of these, especially like legendaries and epics, because they may actually not be good cards, or they may not be good decks. And if you're on limited resources, like I know most people are, you don't necessarily want to be throwing away dust on bad cards. I'm Uncorrupt. These are going to be my day one decks, and my plan is to actually be pumping out more content than you can shake a stick at. The only thing that's going to interrupt that is possibly if I get a call from my boss and have to go to work, which would be an ultimate bummer. But you should be looking forward to tons and tons of content for Murder at Castle Nathria as soon as the expansion launches. Thank you for watching. Good luck with your pack openings, and I'll see you next time.